Okay. Christine, I'm just giving you a heads up. It's now 1:55, so you're welcome to do your breezy introduction.
Yeah.
But we're looking forward to your talk. Take it away.
Thank you all so much for having me. So my name is Christine Solan, and I am a teaching and training specialist at Johns Hopkins University in the biology department. And my sole function here is to provide professional development to teaching assistants. I have a group of about 60 graduate TAs, and this is the first time starting about 18 months ago in the almost 150-year existence of Hopkins that TAs have received professional development. So we're off to a great start. But what I want to share with you today, it's interesting seeing these responses in the chat about some of the biggest obstacles or challenges you have. Hearing over and over again, it's getting them just to turn out, it's getting them to engage. And while what I'm going to show you today isn't going to address that specifically, though I would like to take a moment at the end to address those, this is part of the battle. And part of the battle is creating workshops for our teaching assistants that they feel like are worth going to, right? And they want to be engaged and a part of it. So this framework that I'm going to share with you today is called the Instructional Modeling Framework, Making Teaching Moves Explicit. And this is a framework being used to design workshops, just 1 hour workshops for teaching assistants, where it is not just about the content that is being delivered to them, but it is also about being an example for them, right? It's that modeling piece of it. The framework is that this is set up in a way that we can have a structured approach to workshops that's replicable, that you could pick up and use at the end of the session today. And making teaching moves explicit is a really key piece of this, where we're pulling back the curtain for the TAs to see and take a moment to acknowledge that what they're seeing in action is something that they can implement for themselves. First, my objectives for us for today. I would like you to reflect and critically evaluate some of your own workshops using this framework. Now, I only have 20 minutes, so we're going to have to condense this down quite a bit. But this modeling framework is going to enhance inclusivity, pedagogical effectiveness, and really aligns with all of the STEM education research. Obviously, this has a professional application for us. It's facilitating TA training sessions that explicitly model effective teaching practices. So this is the modeling framework in a nutshell. There's 6 different components to it. All workshops are best when they have learning objectives. That's just right, universal to teaching learning objectives. But the key difference here that I'm finding is when it comes to preparing workshops for our graduate teaching assistants, it's really critical that our objectives for them are on the higher order thinking end of the spectrum, right? These are graduate students, and it is respectful of their intelligence and their time and their abilities that we challenge them by asking them to take a more higher order thinking approach to their training. Also, including how their training for TA aligns with professional practices in the future. What really taking a beat to acknowledge this is preparing you for your professional future in these particular ways, whether that's research, academics, it could even be private industry. The second piece of an effective workshop, of course, is that it's based on evidence-based research. And that is explicitly highlighted to the TAs that this is based in research that we have to know what's going to be effective in a classroom. The third component is that there needs to be a personal connection, right? These TAs are adults, and adult learning is very different than pedagogy, where it needs to relate to the individual on some personal level in order for this to resonate in a way that is meaningful and will help it to stick better for them. So it's really about making this all about them. Fourth, the workshops need to involve interactions between the TAs, which will enhance their learning and confidence. It also really needs to feature active learning in a way that allows them to see it in action, internalize what does active learning really look and feel like when they're a part of it so that they can carry it out. And lastly, should include reflection and evaluation, that they should have a moment to reflect on some questions that align with those learning objectives so that we can see as facilitators, what did you take away from this? Are you taking away from this what I'm hoping you're taking away from this? And maybe you're taking away some really great things I hadn't even thought of or considered. And of course, a moment to evaluate the workshop. So let's see what this looks like in action. But first, wait, this last component, this figure up at the top, this facilitator in the curtains, that's the big piece of this is the facilitator is going to pull back the curtain periodically throughout the workshop to point out sort of what teaching moves and strategies are being portrayed. Okay, so this is really basic, taking that framework and putting it into a table, right? That's the worksheet for developing an effective workshop. Note it's got each of those different components and also includes at the bottom sort of where we're going to acknowledge the professional applications. So here's an example of one that's completed, right? This is a workshop that we give to our teaching assistants on giving students feedback. I'm proud to say that 100% of our graduate teaching assistants have completed this workshop. Okay, that's amazing, but 100% have completed it. Now, it just simply highlights what are those different learning objectives. What is the resource? The resource for this is based on how learning works. Identifying what's that personal connection going to be. It's asking them to think about what has your experience been getting feedback, good or bad? What are the moments of interaction going to be? What are those moments of active learning going to be? And what are these reflections going to include? So I want to show you what this looks like in real life, right? Translating that document to the presentation. So this first slide in the presentation for the workshop, there's a quote from this book, which signals to me as the facilitator, oh, now's the time I hold up my book, say, this is what we're basing this on, and asking them that personal connection. And it's like, tell me about a time you got feedback about your work that really made an impact on you because it was so helpful. Or even juicier, tell me about that horrible experience that you had or that you witnessed, like, and what was wrong with it. And this is a moment where they're engaging themselves and they're engaging their experiences, which is opening them up to building on some new knowledge to that. So that's just a moment of them sharing a few stories to get us warmed up and going. It's really making it all about them. And they love that. They love to make it all about them. Next slide, it's just stating for them, this is what we're going to do today. We're going to critically analyze feedback, evaluate the effectiveness of feedback. We're going to create feedback, and we're going to ensure it's constructive. And what is the professional application? Just taking a beat to acknowledge to them, well, you may not become a faculty member someday. Having the ability to deliver targeted feedback, you're going to use no matter where you go in life, right? But that professional application I have found is so important to them, feeling as though I don't want them just for one thing. I'm here to develop them as a whole and really respects kind of where they're at within their journey and holding space for their future and why this connects for them. So then we go into our first moments of active learning. So they receive this worksheet that's got examples 1, 2, 3, 4. They see the first slide, an example of feedback. Now, please answer these questions, right? That's active learning. They're going to sit, look at this, think about it, and they're going to answer these questions. All right, now we're going to go example 2, example 3, and then we talk through not every single block because that's tedious, but I've chosen strategically 3 or 4 blocks that I ask them to take a moment to talk about. What do you think the student is feeling when they get this feedback, right? And that's a really important moment for them to think about that. And so we go through these really poor examples This is not effective feedback. This is a moment, I've got my icon here of the figure with the curtain where I can pull back the curtain and say, by the way, pause just a moment. This is active learning in action, just so you know. Like we're engaging and thinking and developing our own ideas and perspectives. Then there's a moment of where they're getting some new information. We touch on how does feedback improve student efficacy? What is student efficacy? They usually don't know what that is. And having a moment to help them understand, students have such a thing. They did. Your students do. You still do as a student. And highlighting targeted feedback, that it's about time and it is about giving students a direction to follow in the feedback that they receive so they can help themselves come to those answers. It's not about giving them the correct answers. It's about leading them and going through this framework of the cycle of feedback and where they fit into that. So they're really just getting like maybe 5 to 10 minutes here of like direct instruction. And then we pivot back to our interactions and our active learning, right? Remember example 3, that one was so bad. Well, here's the counterpart in example 4. Now, looking at example 4, go back and complete column 4 answering these questions. And then we discussed that as a group. We discuss what's going on between these two that makes them so different. They're both really critical, but why does example 4 feel better? And we engage in discussing that. And it's another moment to peel back the curtain to say, this group discussion we're having in engaging students in this way and asking them questions and sharing their thoughts, it's really important. Then we get to the moment where, remember back in that learning objective where we're talking about they were going to create feedback, right? That's higher order. Well, we give them an example of a question, a student's not great answer in the rubric answer key, and ask them, okay, please write down your feedback based on what you've heard today. Write down your feedback for this student. Then they trade that paper with that feedback analysis chart with someone next to them. And that person analyzes the TA's feedback. So it's highly interactive. And they get to see other TAs in action with that. Some have been around a long time, right? And they've got really good skills with this, and others are newer with this, but it gives them a peek into what are others doing along this line, and also helps to kind of normalize how we're all gonna approach this. After we talk as a group through, all right, so how did it go? What targets did you see? Okay, let's do it again. Now we've talked about it, let's do example number 2. And they practice on number 2. They give each other feedback. And we peel back the curtain yet again about how this is active learning and group work. All workshops are going to end with reflections and evaluation. In this case, they pull up their phone, they answer these questions about, do you think our objective was achieved? How can I ensure my feedback is motivating to students, especially when addressing areas for improvement? What's one key takeaway I'm going to take from this? If I fall behind in my grading responsibilities, what should I do? That's just a nice one to slip in there. And what could be added or taken away from this to make it more useful? So that's an example of this framework in action on a giving students feedback workshop. The other component to this that I give to you today as a tool that we use here is a workshop analysis, where you can look at that framework and you can look at a workshop that you currently have or is in process and evaluate it for what are the resources that I'm using here? What are the learning objectives? Are they clear? What's the evidence of these in the workshop? What are the strengths of these different components? What could be improved? What recommendations might there be? Now, you could use this for yourself. I work with a team there's 5 of us. We're cross STEM on biology. We have chemistry, physics, computing, and math. And we've used this to analyze each other's workshops to help make this a more collaborative process and to make sure that we're including all of these components that evidence-based research says these are all great things for us to be doing within our work. There's also a few analysis questions for us to evaluate our work with, like how does this structure support the session? Where are these moments where the curtain can be pulled back? where we're modeling for them teaching strategies they can use. And how can this be adapted to a different setting? Maybe if it's not in person, it's virtual or asynchronous. So this is the tool that I will get to you somehow that you can use with the worksheet and with the analysis to take a look at your own workshops to see what pieces could be beefed up in here a little bit. I also have here for you your reflection and evaluation. So if you'll notice, I just did all of this with you, right? I asked you at the beginning, what are some challenges you have? I gave you objectives, professional applications, and we didn't get to do the active learning and interactions because I only have 20 minutes with you, maybe another day. And then including the reflection and evaluation. I'd love it if you would complete this, but you're certainly not required to. I'll come back to this in a moment as I take questions, but these are the footnotes from the framework. And it's so funny because yesterday I heard during the last hour about the JMBE article. I'm like, oh my God, that's the what I've got that in my resources already. That's one of my articles used to support this. So this is the footnotes for the instructional modeling framework. And lastly, the references for supporting all of that. So showing for you, like I do for the TAs, this is the evidence-based research that we want to use. So I'll hop that back up. How'd I do on time? How much time do I have left? Okay, great. Because I also want to touch real quick on that concern at the top in the chat about getting people to come. And then I had a boastful moment of saying, all the TAs have done it. It's like, well, how? How does that happen? Um, I have found the biggest thing is that I have to offer workshops many times. So for example, this workshop was offered 7 times over the summer, twice in June, twice in July, 3 times in August. And the TAs were told that we expect you to come. I've gone through great lengths to avoid the words required and mandatory. I don't like to use those. It doesn't feel respectful to my TAs, but I do say, I'm going to have all these workshops and you need to pick 2 and you need to come, right? And giving students feedback was just one of a handful, but that's one that everybody needed to come to. So you've got 7 times to choose from. Pick one. I don't care which one. And if you can't make it, that's fine. But then contact me and we'll figure out how we can do this together. 1-to-1. And they hate 1-to-1. So they usually figure out a way to get to the one where they get to interact with their peers and hang out. But I have found that it takes a tremendous amount of flexibility within their schedule of multiple offerings in order to get them to come. But then when they come and they have a workshop that doesn't feel like this person's just telling me and telling me and talking at me and talking at me, and it feels like school and it's boring, their willingness to return for other workshops it builds and it grows. When they feel that the workshop is respectful of their time and respectful of their intellect, it builds mutual respect between us. And we find ourselves working together rather than me trying to make them do something. I'm giving 100% and ask them to just give me 50%. Please just meet me there and we can get things done. So I open the floor to questions.
Thank you so much, Christine. That was some really cool work that you've done there. And it seems like there's a lot of requests in the chat for some of those resources that you have. I know I personally am looking forward to checking out that evaluation that you mentioned. Hopefully, if you're willing, we can also share that later with folks after the conference,
Yes.
if you don't have it available right now. But it sounds like there's definitely some interest. Um, and Adam even thinks maybe sharing on the website as a great place to be. Um, yeah,
So I
great.
haven't been following the chat. What's going on?
Um, I think there's a lot of positive comments, especially about EBT as a framework for this. And I think the evidence-based teaching context and the adult learning aspect to it seemed to come through from folks. I do want to open up for anyone who wants to add or chat more about or ask questions. Um, so I want to make some space for that.
When I'm done with questions, I will post documents in the chat. So just sit tight and I will provide those. And Mark, you said the form didn't work? That's such a bummer.
No, it works fine. I just, for convenience, since QR codes, I just put a link.
Oh, thank you. Appreciate it. Mark and I work together.
Were there some other questions that came up that anyone had or thoughts or comments for Christine?
Hi, Christine, this is Frank.
Mhm.
Have you ever been able to offer context-specific training? I know you may have a broad group of TAs that come from different disciplines, but I wonder if you made it specific to, introductory biology TAs or something of that nature, to, as you say, pull back the curtain to show how the research-based practices really become evidence-based in context.
Yes. Because I within biology, I do get the luxury of catering everything towards them, which I think is also makes them feel like this is special for them, because it's not so broad. But we've also adapted this particular giving the students feedback workshop to other disciplines by changing those examples, right? The approach and the concept is pretty universal. That targeted feedback is going to benefit students, and just being able to change out examples is really all that it takes to make that modification. In the framework, really having that pull back the moment allows for whatever your audience is to, whether you can cater that to be more specific to the discipline or be more general, you're able to go really broad or really narrow. It sounds like yours are mostly broad. Is that right?
No, mine's very specific.
Okay.
Yeah, all of my research agrees with what you're saying there. It's kind of a show and tell. You pull back, show them how this works and what context. That I found that if it's not in context, it doesn't work really well.
No, it's hard for them to
Yeah.
extrapolate being told about a strategy and then doing it, or
Yeah.
shown the strategy but not pointing it out. They don't do that transition very well either, but it's that moment of, this is what I'm doing. See, now I'm going to go on.
Yeah.
How long has this program been running? 18 months. And what helped to push leadership to support this? Well, we do have a grant from our dean's office. That is what's funded us to be able to do this for the next 5 years. Each department within our STEM cohorts have varying degrees of support from the department. And it can be definitely a challenge. And when we've got better communication with our department and better support from the department, my secret is I try to avoid leadership as much as possible. And I just do. And then I wait for them to respond or react. And if I just say to my TAs at orientation, which isn't even a whole 10-hour thing, it's just we do workshops all the time. And then we've got a very brief orientation, like, here's what we're doing this semester. I just laid out for them, this is the schedule, pick your workshops, see you there. And there hasn't been a lot of kickback for me, which has been nice, but it's a delicate dance that you're always doing with all of that, right? Like it's just, yeah. And sometimes we step on feet and then we go on. Yeah, don't ask permission. That sometimes sometimes that works. Do the GTAs that participate bring their own examples of feedback? Oh, that's a great question. One of the follow-ups to that workshop, a follow-up after that workshop that semester, they've been given the chance to, you can either have me come and observe you and I'll give you feedback on these things that we can observe. Or if you'd like, we can just meet and bring 3 examples of feedback you've provided to students, and we'll kind of just workshop those together. And about half of them did that. They signed up for like, okay, here's examples of my feedback. And what do you think? And we go through, all right, what are the targets that you're using? Are you pointing your finger and saying you a lot? Because I train them like, don't say the word you. It's kind of mean. Just state feedback about the work. And so we go through looking at all of that. And then the others are like, yeah, come and observe me. I just want feedback. What is this? Adam says, one needs the bandwidth to do that though, too. Yeah. And it's my only job. I teach a first year seminar course for like 20 freshmen, and that's it. The rest of my time is spent on this. All of you should hire me and others like me to come do this for you.
Well, and maybe that's an extension of the question, though, too, because I thought that was true about your position based on our conversations yesterday. But so
Yeah.
that is a form of administrative support for this kind of thing, right? Is by
Yes.
appointing a position to do that.
Now, my
So how did
department
that come
doesn't fund
about?
me, so they are
I guess
like,
is the
okay,
question.
they're not invested in me.
Um, yes, technically we are done with that particular part of the talk, but I do want to thank you so much for sharing and for the fantastic talk that you had, that you gave us. It sounds like there's a lot of great conversation going on. And I do want to say, for folks just joining us, today's session, thank you for joining. It's kind of all about short talks and hearing from our members of our BioTop community and all the different projects we have going on. We've heard from 3 fantastic